So, as a Clawhammer banjo player, you have probably played Cripple Creek a million times. If you haven't yet, if you're just new to the instrument, please go out and play Cripple Creek a million times. And if you've not learned it yet at all, please learn it and then play it a million times. The point is, Clawhammer players, we practice Cripple Creek a lot because it has everything in it that we need to play. It has like right hand, left hand stuff, dum ditties, slides, possibly bends, chords. It has everything that we need. And I've got some good news and some bad news for you. The bad news is that in this video, we're going to look even more at Cripple Creek. We're going to play it another 1 million times. It never stops with Cripple Creek, and I'm sure that you and your loved ones have had enough of it already. On the other hand, the good news is that we can actually spice it up a bit. Actually, we can spice it up quite a lot and make it a little bit more interesting. So we can still practice those basic techniques that, you know, appear in Cripple Creek, but we can spice it up a bit. And spicing up Cripple Creek is doubly good. It's good for two reasons. And so the first one is that it's just good at making Cripple Creek more interesting in the first place. I'm sure you've played, however you've learned it, there's you know, subtle differences to each way of playing it, but you've probably played it a million times, you know. By just making subtle choices, we've just made it a little bit more interesting to us as the player and to anyone who's listening to it. So maybe instead of, we could go, or we've got a few different options which are only subtly different, but these subtle differences, well, by themselves they can make it more interesting, but you can also add more than one subtle difference in, and they kind of work cumulatively, and you can turn it into something quite different. So that's one good element to learning how to spice Cripple Creek up. And the other one is simply that because Cripple Creek is such a simple tune, it's the best place to learn broader ideas and concepts in music. Which I'm going to call in this video just spicing things up, just by changing note choices or changing the rhythm or phrasing or something. We can do that in anything, in any tune, no matter what you're playing. It doesn't matter what the piece of music is. It could just be a song or, you know, a banjo, like a folk tune or something like that. But just by making slightly different note choices and not really changing the kind of foundation of that song, you're changing it a little bit to just change how it sounds. Maybe you find it more interesting, but it's a concept that you do want to learn as a banjo player and as a musician, because it opens up so many avenues to just spice things up, to spice anything up, and it's the perfect place to learn it. So we want to learn that in a really simple context, in something that you've learned inside out, like Cripple Creek. Again, something you've played a million times, or should have played a million times, and should then play another million times on top of that. So let's get into it. I don't want you, by the way, to learn exactly what I'm doing and to just reproduce it, you know, like a one-to-one exact version of it. You're not here to do a carbon copy of it. You can learn these little tips and tricks and little note choices that are different to the usual way of doing it. But really, I want you to go away and think about it for yourself, and also just try things out. You know, we could change notes in minor ways, or major, you know, a huge way we could change, sorry, a relatively small way that we could change it. I did before, that opening note choice, instead of, that's my default, at the 4th fret slide up to the 5th, but you know, just by changing it to the 2nd fret, it's not that different. But as things develop, you can get like really weird note choices. And I'll play a version of Cripple Creek at the end of this video where I do something weird like that. But the point is, you go away and you might find some really out there note choices that you think work really well, that maybe someone else might not like themselves, but which you might like. And that's really, I think that's really valuable, because everyone has different tastes and different opinions about what works and what doesn't work. So the point is, this is just a starting point. You can try out all kinds of weird, wacky ways to spice Cripple Creek or any tune-up. It's more about the principles that we're learning, okay? So with all of that said, there are two main ways to spice up Cripple Creek. We're going to talk about note choice and then rhythm. Or within rhythm, maybe phrasing is part of it as well. So note choices, right? Yeah, you need to have learned Cripple Creek already for this video to be truly valuable to you. But as I've said already, we can just change a little note here, there, and it makes enough of a difference that it sounds fresher, but it doesn't make so much of a difference that it's not recognizable as Cripple Creek anymore. So, as I said before, this is how I tend to play this opening phrase. And really, for that very first note, There are loads of different notes we could start on. We could change this phrase quite significantly if we really wanted to, but we're getting a little bit wacky there, so let's keep it real simple, right? Instead of starting on the 4th fret and sliding up to the 5th, our two other options that I'm going to leave you with for now are starting on the 3rd fret and sliding up to the 5th still, or the 2nd fret and sliding up to the 5th. These notes are not so out there that you've changed what Cripple Creek sounds like, but they're a little bit out there and they're a little bit more interesting. And you're also going to learn by practicing these how to make different slides. You don't want to just practice that one slide over and over again, because then you're only practicing that slide. Practicing these slides will help you more generally. So yeah, you could just take this, right, and just do that on repeat. So do the normal one. If this is the default one you've learned, maybe it isn't, but for a lot of people it is. Do that a bunch. Okay, sounds fine. Maybe I'm getting bored of that now. 3rd fret, okay. And listen to it actually. Sounds a little bit different. Maybe a little bit more bluesy with this kind of note choice. This is an F rather than an F sharp. I like it. It works. Works well, right? Now we could go down to the 2nd fret. I don't think that sounds quite as bluesy. I think it fits in quite nicely. They're just subtly different note choices, but we can do this all the way through the tune. And if we did it invariably with every note choice and just changed it subtly, we would end up with something quite different, but then, as I said before, still recognizably Cripple Creek. So let me just take you through a few other options. So we've done this, these options, and then let's leave that the same, right? I'm not going to chuck every single potential option at you right now. Let's keep that the same. But this next phrase, we can change it. That's a C chord, right? So let's look at different note choices there. So one of them could be, instead of just playing a C chord, we would play a C7 chord, which I got it a bit weird there. If you've not learned it yet, it's a little bit of a weird one. It takes all 4 fingers. There's an easy way to play it as well. And I'll show you that in a second. But listen to that. That really is leaning into a kind of bluesy sound, right? You don't really need to see my right hand, by the way. I'm just hitting the strings. So, ooh, that does sound bluesy, right? So, if I've remembered, there should be a little tab for how to play that C7 chord on the screen, right? So there's 2 ways to play it. This is a kind of easier one to do, which is just really 3 fingers. We're trying to avoid playing that low D string. And then it's just C7, C7, G, as it usually would be. It would usually be C, C, G, but the other one is this, the 4-fingered version. Again, look at the tab on the screen. That would be the easiest way to learn it. I will also link a tab, to a sound slice tab in the description to this video, that maybe just has a few different bits of this vocabulary in for you to learn. Good, so this. I'm not going to get into the theory of explaining what we're doing here, but it's the C7. This note here is a B flat, which is really giving it that kind of spicy, bluesy sound to it. You hear that? Yeah, if you are so inclined, you could go away and learn what's going on exactly there, or maybe I'll cover it in a future video. But for now, just play it and give it a go and see what you think of that sound. I quite like it there. Ooh, missed it completely there. Yeah, I think it's a cool sound. So that's a C7. That's one of our options, right? So this opening phrase, can become that. Already we're kind of pushing out a bit, but it's still very recognizably Cripple Creek. And all we're doing is spicing it up and trying these different note choices out. So the next one is, and the next phrase of Cripple Creek. So the next phrase, the way I teach it, is this hammer on from the 2nd fret to the 4th. That, right? This next one I do teach quite often to my students, because people at first maybe struggle to hammer on from the 2nd fret to the 4th fret. And the way I'm about to teach it can just make life a little bit easier for people at first, while also still sounding quite cool. Instead of going 2nd fret to the 4th fret, try 3rd fret to the 4th fret. You can see that's a little bit less of a stretch, but also just a slightly different sound. Got that right. Instead of, again, I'm choosing a lot of bluesy options here. It's the kind of default one to go for I think a lot of Clawhammer stuff. Nice, right? So the next phrase we could do the same. Instead of 2nd fret and pull off. We could go for the 3rd fret. And now we really are leaning into the blues thing. So if I go through this, everything is very bluesy so far, just by subtly changing. Hey, instead of the 2nd fret, maybe the 3rd fret. Instead of the 4th fret, maybe the 3rd fret. Yeah, again, I'm not going to get to loads of the music theory here, but again, we're putting in a B flat in the context of a G chord. Some of you may already know a G chord has a B in it, not a B flat. So if we're playing this 3rd fret, that B flat is the thing that stands out, and it really gives it a bluesy sound. So, yeah, that's like a bunch that you can do with that, just subtly different note choices. Let me just play a couple more. So you don't even need to do a hammer on actually with this, these phrases. You could just do a little bend. I'm doing a kind of, and honestly, for now, if you are going to give this a go, it's a cool little thing to do. It can be a bit tricky because of these bends. You can just bend it an indeterminate amount if you're starting off. Don't worry too much about it. Just. And I'm keeping that final phrase the same. We won't touch that one for now, actually. It's a bit easier if we just leave that alone. But you can hear already the note choices, the different note choices that I'm making consistently so far are all bluesy one. They lean into a very bluesy side of Cripple Creek, and they're really subtle differences. They're not any harder to play. In some instances, they're a little bit easier actually to play for a lot of people. So that's why they're great. So if you're bored of Cripple Creek, the same old note choices, playing it over and over again a million times, which is exactly what I recommend, right? Just try these out, right? Again, hopefully I've remembered to put the tab on screen, but there should be a link in the description to a tab which lays it out a little bit for you. At the end of this video, I'll show you a quite radical version in terms of note choices, where Cripple Creek will still sound the same, but also very different. Let's skip past note choice now and go to rhythm. The main thing with rhythm that you can do with Cripple Creek is swing it. So it tends to be played as a straight rhythm. Nice, right? But immediately we can just swing it, right? Yeah. Now, if you don't know how to swing tunes, I have a video on that, so go check that out. There's a kind of feeling element to it, and there's also like an intellectual, like how to work out precisely what is going on element to it. I'm not going to get into it here, but you can hear just by changing it slightly from this to a swing. We've got something that's quite different, but obviously very recognizably the same thing. None of the note choices there are different. I am just playing swing rather than straight. Again, there are tons of options. Like rhythm is a whole world of vocabulary off in its own thing, independent of note choice. So you could do all kinds of wacky things. If you really wanted to, you could try a 6/8 version of Cripple Creek. You could do weird time signatures. You could slow it right down if you want to get, kind of. If you want that kind of like languid, kind of chill version of it, or you can really speed it up. There's no limit to what you really could do, but one of the things I do want to briefly look at is just, it's still kind of rhythm, but it's phrasing maybe more accurately. We could chuck in bits of like staccato phrasing. Not super common on the banjo, just because muting on a banjo is a little bit more difficult than it would be on a guitar, for example, or a bass guitar. But if I just give you a minor example, right, we could go like that. So now we're not doing this. These like long legato chords. We go in. Where we're cutting them off, gives a slightly different sound to it. That's a little bit tricky to practice. Again, I'm not going to get into loads of detail of how you would do that. At the end of the day, it's quite simple. You just touch the strings until they stop vibrating. But it can be a bit tricky getting the muting right on banjo. The point is, hey, There's this whole world of things that you can do even to a tune as simple as Cripple Creek, right? And it can be interesting and it can be cool all by itself, right? And we don't necessarily need to put that much effort in. Now, it's kind of a quick video of this today, so I don't want to spend tons of time on it. I just want to kind of open your eyes to some of the things you can try. But I will close now with a kind of version of Cripple Creek that really pushes the boat out in terms of note choices. I'm not going to tell you exactly what these are. Maybe you can work it out for yourself. If not, put a comment below and I'll tell you what I'm doing. I'll be nice, right? But I'm not going to play it super fast. I'll play it nice and slow for you. Listen to this. You'll hear it and you'll still know it as Cripple Creek. The rhythm's still the same. This is really just note choices are a little bit odd. You might absolutely hate it. Some people do. I think it's quite fun. I think it's a cool little demonstration of this concept, right? So here we go. Now, there's a load of different note choices in there. Right now, it suddenly sounds, some people might say Arabic or kind of Middle Eastern or Egyptian or whatever. Reminds a lot of people of, Aladdin, that Disney film. It's got that sound to it. And there's a specific reason for it. It just comes down, though, to note choices. I'm just choosing different notes, and that completely changes the vibe of the song. It doesn't, now it doesn't sound like a tune from, the American South. It sounds like it's from a different place entirely. So the power of spicing tunes up really is kind of limitless, right? There's so much that you can do with it, and it can be really simple. But what I will look at in future videos is the kind of theory behind these ideas and what kind of scales and different note choices we're making. But for now, just think, hey, I just want you to take away the spirit of it, which is maybe I'm going to play Cripple Creek and I'm going to try this note instead of that note, or this note instead of that, and just give it a go. There is a lot of value in just noodling and trying your own little notes out. And does this finger position work? Does that not work? And you can really freshen something up that you've played a million times before, or something that your partner, whoever you live with, is getting sick of it. This is what my students tell me. I'm sure my partner got sick of me playing Cripple Creek a million times every day. People always say, my partner, my wife, or whatever, is sick of hearing this tune over and over again. Unfortunately, the reality is you do just have to play all of these tunes a lot. But this is one way to freshen up. So hopefully this has been some help for people. Drop a comment below if you have anything you want me to cover, or if you have any questions about what I've covered in this video, and I will see you around. Good luck practicing.